Gone away. La 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 da 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 da.
There we go.
Hey, there he is. Easy
Okay.
peasy.
Yeah. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. We're
Okay.
good.
All right.
Yeah. We'll just wait another minute or so and let people come in.
Okay. Good stuff.
Yeah, but it's a pretty cool platform to do these types of things.
It's funny. Like it's great. I'm glad it's working out for you because this is brand new to me, right? It's just
Yeah. But
right?
before the last couple of months, I'd be lying to you if I knew anything about it.
Right. It's funny because Zoom, like I've been so used to Zoom right now. It's been so easy to get used to that based on what we do. So yeah.
Yeah, no, Zoom, same thing. You're just so used to Zoom, and now we know so much about it. Before, who even knew about Zoom?
Yeah. Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
Hey, are you able to turn your phone the other way?
Yeah.
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 Let's go that way.
You want to see? Hold on a sec. Let me see because I see it in my computer now. Let me see if I can get on my computer. That might be easier.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay,
Give it a try.
Let's see here. It says headsets active.
Yep.
Podcast. It's won't let me. How do I join?
So maybe I have to send out, or maybe you're already on.
Oh,
maybe.
Then I don't want to mess you up.
I don't know. But you sound really good.
Okay.
You do. Oh yeah.
Oh, there. Okay.
Yeah. Sound wise, you sound really good. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
Yeah, I loud and clear. Clear.
So just before people jump in, whenever they do, who knows? They just kind of show up. Some people you see, some people you don't.
Okay.
But what we'll do with this is we'll send it out, and the very beginning part, like this part, we'll cut off. So this will go live on on Instagram, but then we'll do a little something editing wise for it.
Oh, I see. I see.
Hey, anything that you want to chat about in regards to other things you have going on outside of school and hockey?
Yeah, you know what? Certainly, I appreciate that. Kind of doing some, mentorship with young hockey players, advising / mentorship with hockey players.
Okay.
On future opportunities in the game, but also I'm using a lot of my educational experiences and obviously the coaching / scouting management experiences in that realm as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And buddy, let me know if there's anything from like our newsletters or anything like that might be of interest to you for us to put out there. So
okay,
I'm putting it out there just so you know if there's anything that you would like us to follow up on.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's great.
So why don't we officially get started?
Sure.
So it's great to have Chris DePiero on with us on our Thursday Instagram Live. Chris has a wealth of experience. So for those who are familiar to coming in on the Instagram Lives with us, or people who are new, or people outside. So Chris, after this gets posted and people view it, right? They'll view you and I, and there'll be some people who just kind of stop by headset and go, "Oh, what are they talking about?" And it's all recorded. So yeah, great to have you on. Just a little bit about you in regards to your work, and also that work being sport related. So currently the head of admissions at St. Mike's College in Toronto, former athletic director at St. Mike's, right? St. Mike's College in Toronto.
Right.
Also was head coach and general manager of the Oshawa Generals of the Ontario Hockey League. And then I will add in scout for the Pittsburgh Penguins of the NHL. And also just kind of adding, you might not find this online as much, but you do a lot of mentorship with hockey players, but athletes in general. Just kind of that path that they could take in regards to their athletics, like reaching their potential.
Correct.
Yeah. So, but it's great having you on. And I'm going to link that potential piece to, if people watch you online, and I know I do, you have a tagline that says be outstanding. And I haven't said this yet off, but I know in my feeds, I love it.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
here's one thing, just curious for me, and I'm sure for other people joining in or listening. What made you come up with that tag and then those posts?
I love that question. First of all, thanks for having me. It's been, you know, I know we've had many chats over the years and getting to know each other and you know through for a long time, and so certainly appreciate you having me on, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here and communicate and chat with you. I love chatting sports. I love chatting psychology, and this is a marriage of all that. So thank you. In respect to the question, it's funny you ask, because years ago when I started my teaching career, so over about 22 years ago, every day you walk into the classroom, students, I ask students, how you doing? How you doing? And hey, great. And then, sir, how you doing? And, I start, hey, I'm good. Thank you. You just kind of came up, different ways of saying good, great, I feel good. Thank you for asking. And then I just thought, I'm going to come up with a word. And at that point, it was just outstanding. And I couldn't say it without smiling. I couldn't say it without garnering a smile in the recipient who asked, or the person who asked the question. And it just really dawned on me at that point in time. There's just the way you say it. And it's just one of those words that has such a great impact, I think, on people in a positive way. Yeah. So I used it when I started coaching, and then it just became, people kind of understood, that, hey, Chris is the outstanding guy. So then fast forward over time, people would say, what does that mean? Outstanding. So then I attached the verb be, to be. You need, it's okay, outstanding is one thing, but we need to actively be outstanding. And what does that mean? It can mean whatever it means to that person, but it's always about, choosing goodness. It's about, being a positive impact on people. It's having fun, having a great day. It's all those things, and it could be whatever it needs to be for you. And that's kind of how it evolved.
Yeah, I love it. And just just the history. So as you mentioned, we've talked many times and just kind of seen this online, but it has action to it, right? So it's more. So even when you post that be outstanding, how just seeing it makes you think differently, right? And it's got some movement to it.
That's right.
And that's why I really like when I see it from you. It has a connotation, but it's your own, right? So It's making it your own, which is right a different level of taking the information in and making it your own.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing, it's funny because I always get the question, when people say, okay, you're outstanding. You can't be outstanding every day. And my comment would always be, it's on a continuum. Some days I'm less outstanding than others, but I'm going to be outstanding today. Yeah. That's my choice. And it really becomes, like you say, the action is derived from the choice that a person makes. And so when I post stuff on Twitter or Facebook or, even on LinkedIn, it's always about that action and showing what outstanding could look like. And it's always rooted in doing hopefully the right thing and choosing goodness, but being positive too. And being, as I said, we not every day is going to be, a 10 out of 10 outstanding, but I'm going to choose even the days that are 1 outstanding, I'm still going to be outstanding.
Yeah. And to me, as you say that, Chris, it's about striving, right? And again, you're not always going to reach it. Some days you will start at a different part of that continuum, but you're always striving to kind of push it forward, right, within yourself, onto others as well. But it's something for that. Well, we're saying more athletes for today's talk, but it's anyone, right, in regards to kind of how their day is going. But in regards to the last few months, and what I'm curious to kind of find out from yourself, but also your affiliation to athletics and academics at St. Mike's, how have, like, from March until the end of school, can you talk a little bit more about the challenges of COVID and what impact it had on students and student athletes at school?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it was when it first came about, it was a huge kind of blow and challenge for everybody. And you realize this is just bigger than, school, the day-to-day school or the day-to-day athletic pieces of people's lives. We were fortunate enough at our school coming out of the March break. We kind of had an online platform educationally set up already in place. So our students missed one day of classes. And so our teachers kind of pivoted really quickly. Our school pivoted in general really quickly. So it was really, really good in terms of being able to provide, the curriculum and education, right away. So that was a positive in that respect, to be able to, to give the young men an opportunity to continue their education. That being said, it was also a great insight. Our teachers did a fantastic job of being creative. And now instead of being creative in the classroom face to face, you're being creative, via technology. And
Sure.
we use Zoom, and we use our education learning management system that kind of was able to allow our teachers to make that pivot and be creative. So that's positive.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, the athletic piece, obviously everything got canceled in the spring, and and rightfully so. And now we're trying to see where that's going to go. We're going to take direction from public health. Our current athletic director, has been really working hard trying to look at different ways in which we can stay connected. In different ways. So when school starts back up in 3 weeks, I think the idea would be, we're going to kind of do a hybrid model of being on the campus and off the campus. And so fitness is going to be our number one component for, let's say, athletics in general. But we're not going to be able to do, right away competition, if you will, like within the school kind of system, and playing against other schools. But, we're looking at different ways in which we can, at least have our students be fit.
Yes.
And so that'll be the biggest thing, because we understand, as everybody should, and understand that, healthy mind, healthy body, kind of connected and making sure. So those are the things that we're looking at and progressing. As we get more and more information as time goes on, public health indicates, and the government, will dictate, will say, as to what we can and can't do athletically, in a competitive way. So it'll take some time, but we're looking at various ways in which we can meet those needs.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier, so we've had this Instagram live for a few months now. It really was kind of COVID related. Once things slowed down for sport and work, we thought, why not kind of have this as a sign of the times, right? So let's use this outside a headset for just what is happening in the current moment. So we've had these discussions probably about once a week, right around there. And I've asked, and I'm going to ask you too. So you got to kind of put your mind a couple weeks or 3 weeks in advance. But I've been asking people, what do you think mentally are mental skills that will be important for when they come back to exercise and play? Like, what would you say that are important mental skills for that return to play aspect for athletes?
That's a great question, and it's going to be obviously my number one visceral response would be resiliency.
Okay.
But I also think, though, it's going to be, I think personalities of different athletes are going to be able to come back a little quicker than others. There's going to be that personal confidence to be able to engage in their sport or their activity or whatever it may be, and I think that those kinds of things that lead to confidence. So it's going to be about that taking action to be able to make sure that the young athlete's going to be able to, feel comfortable. And, I think that's going to be the biggest piece, but the resiliency piece, I think, is key. But I think my sense with young athletes and, teenagers, et cetera, they're resilient naturally. They find ways to bounce back. They especially when there's such a love and passion for what they do, I think they're chomping at the bit to be able to do so. So I think that resiliency will show itself.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. But, I think, I look at it from the positive perspective that things will, they'll find a way. They'll find a way.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm going to do a couple things here. One is, if people have questions as they're listening to us, if people have questions, they'll throw it out there in that little comment area. We can get to it as well. So we'll kind of see if any questions come up along the way or at the end.
Okay.
But here's what I'm hearing from you is, one, that these athletes that you work with, I work with, they do have this mental strength, toughness piece to them. Right? And a lot of times they're always like, I need to be more of. I tell them, and you tell them, you got it within.
Right.
Right? So that's a big part here, is that you got to tap into your mental strength because it's within there. And I love that you said they're resilient.
Right.
And number two, everyone is different. Right? And it's just that path that person needs to get to feel, like you said, comfortable, confident. And someone might have that confidence when they come in. It might dip down. Someone might have lower confidence, and it might go up as time goes on, and it's gradual.
Right.
But I love what you're saying, that every athlete has to be in tune with what their needs are. And that's very important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It becomes a situation, and what's funny is that guys like yourself and other sports psychologists and people that whether it be educators, coaches, mentors, whomever, they can find ways in which to allow for that athlete to recognize that they do have it within them. And sometimes, a young teenager may not recognize that or understand that necessarily. But once they recognize and they go to that reservoir, it's there, it comes out, then it's like a realization. And that's where I think the biggest piece for me is really getting athletes to understand that part, and some can come at it quicker than others. Some have that ability to dig down and find it. And some need a little bit of a nudge or a little bit of some kind of feedback, positive feedback, or that kind of stuff. So I think it's really like you say, they're different. It's recognizing that everybody is different in terms of athletes, but it's also everybody has that ability to get there. They do have that ability to find that reservoir.
Yeah, and I'm going to come up. Jay has a question for us, but I'm going to just one thing I want to add to it in regards to that recipe. Is that knowing that recipe is within, and you got to work on it until it comes, right? And that's where for my kids who are a little bit younger than the people who are in high school, like I just keep on telling them that, it will come, but it's through work, right? It's not going to come right away when you come back to school and back to play, but if you work at it, it will, right? Those skills will mesh and it will come. Right. It's just the next challenge will come soon after, but you got to keep on working. But if you work hard on these mental and physical skills, they'll come together. But it is work, right? The mental skills are work just like physical skills.
And that's exactly. Certainly I know, through what you're doing with Headset and you guys are doing with Headset, it certainly becomes for me, a great indicator that people need to recognize that mental skills are skills, and skills need to be worked on, and they need to be worked on a daily basis. It's not something that just you get and you have and you hold on to and then that's it. No different than shooting a free throw or stick handling or throwing a football, whatever skill, athletic skill, or any skill for that matter. It's mental skills are mental skills for a reason, and they need to be worked at. They need to be honed. And some days you're going to be able to kind of tap into it, and some days you're not. So you're just going to have to stay the course and continue, working at it. And I think that's the biggest piece.
Yeah, I love it. If there's athletes who are going to listen to us and go jump back on, remember that last line of yours. That's what I'm highlighting. If there's a highlighter or underline, I love what you just said. Right. Our friend Jay Galea is on with us.
Oh, good. Yep.
He asked, how do you bring out the resiliency out of an athlete? Maybe you can pick one thing that comes to mind.
Great. Again, Jay, that's a great question. I think for me, everybody's going to face adversity, and it comes in many forms. It's just being able to continue to get back up after you've been knocked down. And for me, it's simple as that. And again, depending upon whatever activity a person is doing, there's going to be some adversity that you're going to face. You just got to keep soldiering through. And it's a great way, in my mind, resiliency in that manner is a great way to gauge how important your goals are. If you have a goal in a certain area and you get knocked down or you face adversity, you don't get the result you want, well, are you giving up? Are you giving in? Or are you moving on? You continue battling. And I think that's the bigger piece. It's not about the event that happened. It's about, the bigger picture and kind of, as I said, just, getting up after you've been knocked down type of thing.
Yeah. Lovely. And for that, you kind of see the short term getting knocked down, and there's a long term right piece. If you have a longevity, you have a career that you have to continue to use that resiliency skill in the short term and longer term as well.
Right. Correct.
Hey,
Yeah.
I want to tap into your experience with a certain age group, because a lot of headset users are within this age group. So I'm going to go with the 14 to 20-year-old. And you've worked with thousands of athletes across sports in that 14 to 20-year-old range. If you could give us 2 or 3 mental skills that separates athletes as they mature, I would love to know what comes to mind.
Wow. Again, this is great. I love it. Well, I mean, I keep saying the resiliency, so I'll say resiliency,
Okay.
and we've tapped into that. So but that then opens up a Pandora's box of so many different more, right? Because to have that ability to kind of keep bouncing back after adversity, you need some sort of, I would say, that mental discipline, and mental discipline for me is always about, finding ways to stay the course of what you choose to do.
Lovely.
And knowing that there's going to be, the shiny object maybe over here, but you have to make sure you get things done. And I think that the elite athletes that I've had the pleasure of being involved with in that age range that you mentioned, and the ones that have kind of excelled and moved on to relative, I don't say greatness, but relative success, if you will.
Yeah.
It's because they're able to stay the course, be resilient, have the mental discipline, because their goals are bigger than themselves.
Nice.
And I think that's, for a 14-year-old, that might be a challenge to fully grasp and understand. But for somebody as they move forward, again, I believe, and maybe this is a little bit old school Italian in me here, Peter.
Yeah.
It's a great way to challenge how important is that goal for you? How important is this activity for you or to you?
Yes.
And you get these things that come into your way, success and failure, but as long as you understand, you don't get emotionally attached to the results. And once you get emotionally attached to the results, that's when you go up and down. And I think the greatest athletes, or the elite athletes that are able to progress and move forward, are able to realize success and failure, the old saying, this too shall pass. So long-winded way of saying 2 or 3 things, but I really believe it's always about knowing that you're going to continue to grow and you're going to continue to get better. So whatever's going on today, as long as you're continually moving forward and progressing positively in a forward manner, good things will happen.
Lovely. I got my highlighter, right? I'm going with mental discipline. Awesome. And that emotional attachment to results. And to me, I'm also going to put into, sometimes there are some big wins that happen, some monumental moments in your life that are ones that you look and are positive, like you're on your path. But to me, that mental discipline is to come back down. Right. And then keep on that path, right? And a lot of times athletes, they think about those negative events that you got to bounce back from. I'm hearing from you, hey, just don't become too emotionally attached to that performance that might be, call it on the continuum, a 10 out of 10, like you're really happy with it, right? And those are pieces that I really think are helpful for young athletes. That's just, they go outside the question of the 14 to 20-year-old. That's for, I think, all athletes.
I agreed. And it's funny because, you read the stories. We all read stories about, like I keep coming back to Sidney Crosby, one of the final games in 2016, I think they won the game, but he was in the weight room afterwards. And it's like, he's recognizing there's still more work to be done.
Yeah.
And it's it's not about, when they won the Stanley Cup, I'm sure he took some pause to celebrate with his teammates, his family, his friends, etc. But now, hey, let's keep going. Let's keep driving. Let's keep trying to progress. And I think, that's the separator. Those are the separators for me is the ability to say, okay, yeah, this was great. I love it. I'm a Stanley Cup champion or whatever. I'm a champion, or I accomplished so many good things. But now I want to continue to grow and not to get emotionally attached, as I keep saying, to that one moment. Like, the moment's great, celebrate it, be happy for it, but let's move on to the next moment, because the next moment may be greater.
Right.
And it's our design that we should make it greater.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Hey, I don't know if I'm going to bring a friend of mine into our Instagram lives. He's under, it says Cousin Larry on there. His name is Anthony Perry.
Okay.
Rugby player, rugby coach, managed rugby. And I'm going to bring him into it because he's got me thinking. And he's been on a few of these Instagram lives. And afterwards, because during the Instagram lives, we talk about coachability. This is where I'm going with this. And now that I have you here and I have him there, I'm going to go down this path. So we talked about coachability, right? But I've asked coaches, what makes someone different in regards to when you coach them? And a lot of coaches say coachability. So I want to go through two different parts. One is what you think makes an athlete coachable. But then I want to take it from a lens of what can the athlete do? Because we've only taken it from the coach's perspective.
Right.
So let's go with, since we have you here, and then Anthony Perry, Cousin Larry's here. Let's go with what makes for you an athlete coachable.
Yeah, you know what? A younger version of myself would have said somebody who, listens to the coach. And then now, as I've evolved and grown and understand and read, and you kind of communicate and have these discussions, it's an athlete that's able to take in what the coach is saying, respect it, but also then saying, okay, understanding how can as the athlete, how can what the coach is saying help me get better? As long as they understand it from that lens. Now, that's a pretty idealistic lens to look at it from. Not every athlete is going to look at it from that lens, and there may be some pushback. And if there is pushback, that's okay. And then, so from the athlete's perspective, they don't have to take everything in that the coach says always, in my mind. However, as long as there's respect, and I think the respect has to be there, and that respect gets earned both ways. Okay. And I believe from a coaching perspective, trust is such a big thing. So I know for myself as a coach, the athletes who I trust the most will obviously then get the most ice time, in my case, as a hockey coach. Okay. And I'm thinking back to the example that I just, we would have seen with the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Columbus Blue Jackets, where, John Tortorella, one game, was shown kind of very upset at Pierre-Luc Dubois, and was giving it to him for lack of a back check on a goal that was scored, and was giving it to him. Pierre-Luc Dubois, at one point in time, turned around and said something in return. It was reported afterwards, Tortorella then went down the bench, waited about 20 seconds, came back to Pierre-Luc Dubois and said, "Are we done?" "Yes, we're done. We're done." And then we moved on. That showed respect. So the coach showed respect to the player showed respect back to the coach. The next day, what does Pierre-Luc Dubois do? He scores 3 goals, and they win the game. Now, that's an example. And my point I'm trying to make out of that with an example is that, and sometimes there's going to be some pushback. And I think sometimes athletes need to recognize the coach. If the coach has their best interest at heart, what they're saying is for their benefit, as I said at the outset, and to make them better. But the coach also has to understand sometimes the athletes are looking at it. We have to understand it from the athlete's perspective. What do they want out of that situation? We have to recognize where their coachability lies, and what not so much buttons, but what motivates them, or what is their drivers to help them become a little bit more successful, but ultimately coachable and therefore trustworthy.
Yeah. Hey, and again, when you have 20 plus guys on a team, in some sports even bigger than our example of hockey here. As a coach, how do you tap in? Or let's go from the athlete. How do you, because it's you meet in the middle, right? Let's just say when an athlete is being able to reach their potential, coach is pushing them, they're pushing, and they're meeting.
Right.
Any nuggets to bring out? Like, how do you do it, or how do you know?
You know what? Like, I think the athlete-coach relationship is a relationship, like any other relationship, and it becomes that you have to get to know your athlete. You really have to know, and again, I think today more so than ever in terms of the way our young athletes, A, have been raised, B, have been coached along the way. It's a different era. So we have to meet them where they are to find a way to get to understand who they are.
Yeah.
And it's no different than a teacher in a classroom, or a sales executive, a sales manager with a sales crew, or it's just any relationship. You have to find a way. Again, what are the drivers for that person, and help them understand that you're there as the coach, the leader, the manager, whomever, to make them better. And you're going to challenge, you're going to cajole. You need the feedback, but you got to be able to push, pull, lead, whatever it may be. But I think as long as that's understood at the front end, and again, relationships are based on trust and communication, then I think then you have an opportunity to help, right? And I think, and then the athlete needs to recognize that, I think, from their end too.
Yeah. I like that. It's a recognition on both ends.
Right.
You kind of beat me to the punch on a question that I had in regards to the athlete and changes over time. Right? What have you seen are some changes in athletes maybe 10 years ago than where they are now?
So I've done a talk that I have, and I've done to coaches in terms of coaching today's athlete. But the kind of the summation of my talk that I always do is that our job, I think, as coaches is to, again, I say, meet the athletes where they are. We can't change necessarily. My point being is athletes or students or kids do not lack capacity. They lack leadership or leaders. So I think it's our job as coaches, mentors, whomever, to lead these kids and to where they are. Every generation of adults, and we're at that point of being, we're leading young athletes, have had their concerns, whether it be the 50s or the Leave It to Beaver crowd. You had your Eddie Haskell, and then your 60s had your, the peace, love, war kind of, that whole generation. 70s had their so every generation of young athletes have had to go through their own growth, development, and the coaches that are able to meet them where they are, show some leadership, because you still have to have some strength of character and values that you're going to stand by as a coach and stand for. But as long as that's communicated, then you're basically showing that athlete that, it's not the capacity for them to not learn because of the fact that all these athletes now have received medals and trophies, and, they've been told they've been great since they were 2 years old. That's not our fault as coaches, but we have to find a way to get to that athlete, to show them different manners or different ways to want to succeed.
Yeah. And it got me to thinking about the leadership piece, and we've talked outside of this Instagram talk about leadership, but it almost feels like that modeling the way. You gotta kind of show them what it is, and then maybe tell them what it is, but also they show them exactly what you would like from them. And everyone goes through their path differently, like you mentioned, but they still have to have those kind of actions and behaviors kind of model to them so that they can do it in their own way, and then other people can help them along the way.
And I'm a big believer in certain, like, for coaches to have, and lack of a better term, hills to die on. I think there's certain structures and whatever, and in sport, different sports have their different kind of parameters that every coach would, there are metrics that they want to have, and I believe in that. I believe there need, again, you talk about the 14 to 20-year-old. I truly believe, Peter, that every teenager, I think, craves and wants structure. I really believe that, regardless of era of growing up, they crave and want structure. And I think it's coaches, it's teachers, it's parents that, that are providing it. So I use the electric fence model. It's like you buy a dog, you set up the electric fence, they put the collar around the dog, and kind of some dogs will push to the end of the driveway. They get zapped. They understand their parameters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not advocating that we do that to our athletes, but what I'm suggesting is that there are certain personalities of people, of kids, that some are going to push the coach a little bit more.
Yeah.
Some are going to be more compliant in a group of 20, 25 athletes. So it's our job, again, to show some leadership. What are our hills that we're going to die on? What's the structure that we're going to bring to this situation, whether it be hockey, rugby, whatever, football, soccer? How are we going to be able to show that? And what values do we stand for that are important, that we believe are important for the growth and development of that young man or woman, or to be able to grow?
Yeah.
But knowing that they've been raised in a different way than maybe what we've been raised, and we have to meet them where they are.
Yeah, that's important. But as I'm listening to you, that servant leadership piece really comes to mind as you're talking, right? That the athlete, that coach is there to serve and to bring forward the potential of every one of them, however many on your team,
right,
from the superstar to the person who's brand new. Without question.
And I think, and you touched upon it earlier in terms of showing, being that example, and I think that's the piece for me. It's like, it's the servant leadership piece is huge, because it becomes for me as a coach, I can't remember who said it, but it was a college basketball coach said, if it was about me, then I wouldn't have any followers as a coach. But he says it's always about my athletes.
Yeah. So
and the more I can get them to succeed, all of a sudden, he said, it's funny how that everybody kind of wants to give me accolades.
Right.
And he just said, it's funny. Like a lot of coaches go out at the reverse. They want it to make it about them. And, so it's just, I think that's the piece too. I think it's just, you provide the environment, the structure, the culture for your athletes to succeed. You push, you cajole, you lead, you help, you mentor, you teach, all those words, and being able to get them to where they want to go, then you're showing the way.
Yeah. Hey, are there any that now you can think of over the years, any challenges that are different? Again, every generation has their challenges, right? Inside of sport and outside. Any specific ones, or one that you can think of that is different over maybe say a generation of athlete that you've been around?
Well, I just think today's athlete is strict. I mean, they're a lot more knowledgeable or in tune with what's going on. When I started coaching, it was like, you kind of provide, here's what we're doing, and this is what we're doing. And players go, okay, great. And then they do it, and then they, whatever, if they messed up, you deal with it. But now these guys know everything. They're on video. They're on different technological device. They've got, at least I know in hockey, they can access every NHL game possible, break it down themselves at home, rewind it, so they're more in tune and they understand. So, but that also poses a positive, because then you can use those examples of the athletes at the highest level that these younger athletes have access to via technology, and use those guys as an example, as opposed to, again, you being the expert, you're the facilitator a lot more, because these guys, they're going to find the information anyways, whether, so it used to be the coach is the expert. Now it's the coach as a facilitator.
Yes. It was well said. Well said. For just coaches who are on and listen to this, and then athletes too, that the role of the coaches, so similarities, but now I love that you brought that up.
And I think too, it also then challenges the coach to have strength of character too, because you can't, you still got to, I think, show leadership. You still got to be the one who's providing the electric fence, or at least you're providing, the buffer, right? You have to, because you can't let them run amok either. And I think that's kind of important. I think that's where, that's the beauty to me of leadership or coaching is being able to tap into that and, and get better even as that coach, right?
That's the beauty of the mental skills part, the leadership piece with that's why it's always changing, right? And once we're moving on, and then the next kind of group comes up, they're going to be doing things with probably similar challenges, but there'll be those new ones that they come up with, and that's where it makes it so fantastic to be a part of, that it always is changing.
It is,
It
and
really is.
but I also want to caution too. Human nature is human nature. It's been that way since the beginning of dawn of time. So we have to recognize that it's just our environment, our the context in which our human nature displays itself changes. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Hey, you talked about athletes. They have all these different devices. They have all this knowledge in front of them, and if it's not, they can go find it in front of them. I've talked to you about headset quite a few times.
yep.
How do you think the headset platform, just being able to give mental skills training and make it accessible to athletes, where do you see it fit with today's athlete?
I think it's bang on, and I say that because I think as we talked about earlier, the mental skills component is a skill, and the ability to kind of tap into something on a consistent basis technologically, where these teenagers are at, these young athletes are at, they're just they're technologically savvy, but their world is revolved around their devices,
Yeah.
and to be able to have a platform that they can utilize anywhere they are. So it's not about having to go home to watch a video on the old VCR, or I don't want to say a beta, but a VCR or something like that, where like it's just you meet them where they are, as we talked about. And I think to be able to do that, give them the platform to do that, to understand that and go through the concepts of it, but to do it on a consistent basis, preferably daily, because it's a skill that needs to be honed. And I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we say. Like, if you can do a little bit each and every day, that's where that consistency starts, and those habits start to build. And once you're put in those positions, you've kind of worked on it, right?
Yes.
You've worked on it on your device, but you've maybe implemented it in practice. So once it comes to those pressure situations, you kind of go, yeah, I've been there before. Just like you would, like you said, a free throw in practice, you're going to know the way to do it.
Right.
A pass, a softer pass in hockey, you've been trying that in practice. So the same as we're saying for mental skills, if you practice, it will come more, like it will become something that you feel comfortable with.
Without question. And part of that too is, I think, with mental skills and doing it, on a consistent daily basis, as you said, I think it's almost like you create new patterns.
Yeah.
For yourself, habits, patterns, whatever you want to choose the word, but it's being able to find that way. And then you realize that you do have that. And it goes back to what we said at the front end about the reservoir.
Yes.
Going back to the reservoir. And all of a sudden, when a coach or mentor, somebody says you've got it in you, if you've been working through like a headset platform and being able to go through the mental skills training, all of a sudden you've got it.
Yeah, and it's genuine. Like as you're talking, I'm thinking, like, if someone's to ask you, and you've done this how many times, you know when an athlete is genuine in their response, right? It could be, have you practiced this physically or have you practiced this mentally? I'm sure you can get a sense of, okay, that it's genuine, that he feels comfortable with this defensive scheme. But the same could be said that, okay, I can see that his confidence is building and it feels genuine.
Right.
That he or she is getting used to that or leveraging that skill.
Sure. And then I think part of that too becomes, once it's done on, you say repeatedly or done on a consistent basis, and a new pattern or skill as you develop it, it's a funny thing. All of a sudden confidence flows from there, because you don't mind taking the action that you need to take because you've got this background. You feel comfortable doing so. And so many athletes want to say they want to look outside for confidence, outside of themselves for confidence, where it's all within.
Yeah.
They have it within them, and it goes back. And I think that's where you say headset becomes such a great platform to be able to kind of go through the process, to go through that, the mental skills training. And then like I know, like you say, if they do it in a genuine manner, like all of a sudden, like the confidence will come through. They'll have it.
Yeah. And it becomes, right? And it's a process. You almost kind of don't know it. You got me earlier, and I didn't mention the word, but in working with swimmers, they kind of say that when all the work comes together, they call it like the click. Okay. And I've heard it from other athletes say it in different ways, but it's that work comes, and then you are ready.
Right.
And when all those skills start to work in harmony, then, right? But you have to work at it. It's just not gonna, the light switch is not gonna be turned on if you've been working on the other skills, technical, physical. If you don't work on the mental skills, that part's gonna be lagging behind. right?
Right.
And it's not going to be that connection with those other skills. So, yeah.
Well, and to understand, like you say, as athletes get older, and the talent starts to fade, and kind of what kind of controls or what allows you to continue is the ability to be mentally, have the mental skills to be strong enough to continue on, and have the ability to want to continue. And I think that's part of the skills piece that needs to kind of be, I guess, highlight a little bit more for athletes too, right? Because as they're younger, they always want to rely on their talent. So, something doesn't go their way, they want to rely on their talent, and it gets by, it gets them by. But over time, it's the ability to, I think, to be strong in the mind and strong in the mental skills to be able to kind of push through and have the resiliency, as we talked about earlier, to kind of fight through.
Right, that's well said. Hey, we have one question here from Anthony Perry, cousin Larry. He says, if coachability is the top attribute in a player, what is the top attribute in a coach?
Ooh. I think it's the ability to communicate. And I think part of how you communicate indicates whether you have the athlete's best interest at heart, almost like the genuineness. It's the ability to show, that you're going to meet the athlete where they are. You're going to communicate your standards, your guidelines. You're going to communicate your expectations. You're going to communicate what you want from your team, or individually what you want from that athlete, but in a respectful manner.
Yeah.
But also, it's also going to communicate, hey, great job. You did a good job that shift. Maybe, it's, again, how you communicate. You got to communicate the positives. You can't just focus on, harping on negatives. So I think communication for me is a big one, because it becomes how you do everything.
Yeah.
So, flows from there.
Yeah. I love it. And it's communication for the individual. It's communication as a group. Like, again, there's some big teams that you all are coaching that interpersonal skill is so important.
Without question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know if there's any. We're gonna start to wrap things up here a little bit. But if people have questions that are listening, throw them on out there. But it has been a pleasure having you on, and I always appreciate, even outside, like, we're recording this and we're on our phones here, but we've had these conversations, you and I, outside, that I've appreciated over the years. So
yeah, likewise.
I'm gonna keep on phoning and emailing and get together with you just to enjoy the conversation. So I've enjoyed it, and I hope everyone else has too.
Likewise, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak about this stuff. I love it, and to me it's part of being outstanding. So it's
awesome. And we'll outside of the Instagram live piece, just put some stuff, newsletter from Headset, on our Instagram, outside of the Instagram live, our LinkedIn as well. Just some ways of getting a hold of you, because you mentioned early on that mentorship piece that means so much to you. So
right. Thank you.
I think athletes can get a lot from spending some time with you.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'll post this on our Instagram pretty soon after I click the end button here. So wish everyone a good afternoon, or a little bit later if you're somewhere else in a different time zone. We'll catch up with you very soon on another Instagram Live. Awesome. Chris, thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.